Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to the Canadian Junior Virtual Cycling Series live stream. My name is Andrew Paradowski, and I will be your host once again for today. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a technical glitch in the men's race early this morning. About 15 minutes in, we had to end the live stream because we were no longer receiving the broadcast signal. However, we heard it was a very exciting race. A lot of activity was happening during the race. Lots of climbing, lots of attacks. Ultimately ended up with Ontario's Dylan Bibick taking the gold after a worrisome chase up the final climb where there was an attack that he only was able to counter and overcome within the last minute or half minute or so of the race. Lots of activity, lots of good excitement in the men's race, and it looked like it was a podium of Bibick, Getz, and Leonard at the final end of the series. So be sure to check the Junior Series race website for all the final point standings for the junior men's race. And of course, after we've got the women's race starting within a few minutes, about 7 minutes or so. And be sure to check the website for the final standings for that. And with that, let me once again introduce my co-host for the day, Josh Peacock from Cycling Canada. Josh, how's it going today?
I'm doing great, Andrew. Again, real big bummer we couldn't catch the rest of that men's race. It started off nice and strong, but great to have a nice little race recap. And sounds like it was an exciting finish. So I'll expect more of that for the women's race here this afternoon, and can't wait to get started. So thanks for having me, Andrew, and really looking forward to the race.
And with that, let's take a look at what we're going to be watching today with our junior and under 17 women. Josh, do you have the start list in front of you?
I certainly do. Let's go on through those. We once again have a good number of riders here on the women's side from various provinces. So let me just pull this back up here. Starting with Alberta, we've got Alexandra Volstad, who's an independent rider in the U17 category. After that, we've got Annabelle Thomas. That's your U17 leader from Cyclemeister's Bow Cycle out of Calgary. Following that is Ella Myers, who's an independent rider in the junior category, and Maureen Lawson, who is a rider from Juventus out of Edmonton, actually, in the junior category. Following that, we have our lone rider from British Columbia. That's Giza Rogers from the Live Canada off-road team. She put together quite the performance last week, so keep an eye on her this week. Following that, we have our riders from Manitoba. We've got a two-rider team here from Manitoba. That would be Amy Gauthier, who's an independent rider in the U17 category, as well as Erin Gunter, who is a junior rider from Team Manitoba. Keep an eye on her. She's had some very strong performances the last couple of races. Once again, we've got Kirsten Simpson from Tri NB out of New Brunswick. So that's one of our triathletes stepping up and trying out the series here. Welcome back, Kirsten, in the junior category. From the Ontario squad, I should say, we have quite a number of riders. Once again, very well represented. We've got our junior series leader, that's Dylan Baker from Attack Racing, on her squad as well. A couple of U17 riders, Annika Brantz and Nora Linton. Independent rider Kiara Lilick is a junior rider as well. Amanda Klenkink from KW Cycling Academy, that's a junior rider. Erin Mitchell, Serena Hill, and Samantha Fangi, all from KW Cycling Academy. Representing Team NCCH out of Hamilton, we've got Maria Montrichard, Nicole Bradbury, who put together a very exciting performance last week. Yasmin Purdon, Sophie Bradbury, as well as Vanessa Montrichard. So welcome, guys. Expecting some strong performances from that team again. Rounding off the Quebec team, we have Brittany Cochon from Dynamique de Contrecoeur. She's a junior rider representing Quebec. We also have Melina Gouvremont out of Laval, representing the Espoir Laval team. That's a U17 rider. And last but not least, we've got the hometown team. That is Team Sask, the group that has put on this race today. That's Julia Smith, who is a U17 rider, accompanied by a fellow U17 rider, Nora Rittinger. Had quite the fan squad in the last couple of weeks. So we expect to see her family back tuning in again. And that rounds off our riders list. Andrew, I'll pass it back to you.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Josh. Just a little under 4 minutes to go before the women are off on the beautiful island of Majorca here. Why don't we tune in to race level and see how everyone is doing in the lineup. As we move on over down to the road there, we've got the start gantry, beautiful big RGT purple gantry. You can see the clock overhead showing just a little over 3 minutes now to go with the start. Let's zoom on in and check out our peloton for today. You can see some of the names that Josh had mentioned there. A nice sizable women's field today, looking like it's going to be an excellent race there. If you see a couple avatars that look like men, that's because those are our moto avatars there. We're required to be involved in the race if we want to get the broadcast here. So you're going to see names like Moto 1 or Junior Series during the event. That's just us, so don't worry about us. We're in there just to make sure we can capture and follow this wonderful event here. So before we get started, let's take a quick look at what our ladies have in store for them today. One of the more interesting things about this event is the elevation here. So take a look at the bottom of your screen right now, and you'll see the elevation map. The first 4 kilometers or so is going to be pancake flat, so we're expecting a very, very quick start for the race today. But once they get to the bottom of that first climb, it is going to shatter, where I'm sure, where the climbers in the peloton will be able to get to the top first. And then there's going to be a very, very quick descent. And if it mirrors the men's race, there might be a regrouping at the bottom for the sort of intermediate climb that happens in between the 2 big climbs. But then once we're in the back third of the race, we'll have that final large climb towards the Cap de Formentor, the beautiful sort of eastern point on the island. The Mallorcans say that this is where the winds meet. So if the physics in the game are going to be realistic, we might even see some crosswinds up there. Who knows if that will affect any of it. The final few kilometers of the race is a bit of a downhill on a flat, so I think those who get to the top of that final secondary climb will be the ones that emerge victorious and end up on the podium 1, 2, 3. So it's anyone's game. Even the strong riders might be at risk here, as everyone saw in the men's race this morning. Even the series leader, junior series leader Dylan Bibick, was not in first place until near the end of the event. And after a hard sort of chase down, he managed to pull that one off. So anyone's game. We've got some information on the sort of point standings during the race for you, and we'll talk a bit about these jerseys and who's who as the race gets underway. But right now we've got about 1 minute to go before the women are off. Josh, any final thoughts about today's race?
Yeah, I think same thing we said for the men's race. You know, these riders look very cool and collected on the start line with their avatars, but we know those riders are pushing some major watts right now, getting ready for the release off that start line. Very different dynamic to a real life road race where you want to start as hard as you can to get that jump off the gun. So good luck to our riders. We know you're already working hard, and that hard work probably won't stop for the next hour or so. So very excited to see what happens here at Cap de Formentor.
That's right. Everyone here is a winner because you came out and you raced. You lose 100% of the races that you don't enter. So congrats to everyone who took the initiative and signed up for the racing. And good luck to everyone today. Keep going because there are points involved. You never know what any place finish will do for you today. So 10 seconds to go. If you're watching at home and you're on your bike trainer, start revving your engines. Get that leg speed up as the race is going to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they're off. Here we go. The race has begun. Let's go and follow our leader. Checking in there now with the front. We've got Giza Rogers.
Yeah, and expect quite a bit of shuffling around here in the beginning. I think we'll see some high pace, a lot of those red numbers you see on the left of your screen, big power to start off. And then as soon as we start getting into those hills, we do expect the pack will get strung out very much like last week in that gravel course. So it should be interesting off the start. As always, we keep that group together, and here's hoping the group stays together this time, but do expect some good stringing out of the group. This is going to be quite the hilly course. So in that first climb, we should start to see that happen. There will be some small attacks off the front like you're already seeing, but could be anyone's game today.
Absolutely, Josh. And let's take a look here on the top right of the screen. You can see that our speeds are already getting north of 40 kilometers an hour. Very, very flat and sheltered. Not a lot of wind affecting the front of this race. So we're going to see this pace. You can see on the bottom left hand of the screen the elevation they've already made. Good dent into the flat section of the race. Not a lot of time before they get to the bottom, so there's going to be a lot of sorting out of the riders here, making sure that they are in the front for the climb, especially if they don't consider themselves very good climbers. They're going to want to make sure that maybe even they're off the front before they get to the bottom. Some of these tactics will come into play over the next little while. So before, Josh, we get to the bottom of the hill, why don't we show our viewers at home how to tell their favorite racers apart by telling them how the jersey system works here.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. As you guys may see, there are a number of different colored jerseys there, and there is a little bit of method to the madness here that's been sent out pre-race to all the different athletes to try to create some organization here to make it a little bit more viewer friendly and help you at the crowd cheer on your sort of hometown crowds. We have from Team Alberta, that will be your blue jersey. So that's the decathlon kit. We have a couple of blue jerseys, but Alberta will be represented by that blue decathlon kit. Up next, we have BC. That one's a bit of the multicolored jersey. We saw Gazer Rogers right at the front there. That's the RGT Founders jersey. So it's a little bit blue and pink and green, as you can see on your screen now. Following that, we have the Manitoba jersey. So that one's a bit of a multicolored one, but that's represented by the green, yellow, and white. That is the Rutag jersey from the RGT program. Representing New Brunswick, you'll see that one. That's sort of the red jersey, black on the bottom, red on the top. That's the Hub cycling kit. Funny, Andrew, that's one of the teams we were quite familiar with at our Track World Cup here not too long ago, about a year ago. Next up, we have the Ontario crew. You'll see lots of those jerseys. The biggest group here today, for sure, that is the GCN jersey in red, white, and black. Following them, we have the other blue team. That would be Quebec in the Training Peaks kit. So you'll see that one quite a bit at the front. They were always strong contenders in this series. Following that, we've got the Saskatchewan, sort of the home team here, the group that has put on this race, that's the Sask Performance Cycling Program. They are in the green and black Primal kit. So keep an eye out for those riders. And last but not least, we have our series leaders. So you will see the U17 leader is in that teal colored jersey, stands out quite well. That's Annabelle Thomas from the Alberta squad. Also, you'll see a pink jersey. That would be Dylan Baker from Attack Racing. She is our junior series leader. So you'll see those two jerseys as standouts. Once again, keep an eye out on them at the front of the race. They were quite active last week and the week before. So expect them to be in those early breaks. And Andrew, I think that's it for our team kits. I'll pass it on back to you.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Josh. So checking back in with the race there, they've made it to the promenade section there. An interesting route choice for the race. I wonder if they would do this in real life. You've got the patios to the left and the beach to the right with lots of more of like a walking promenade, the cobbles, that sort of thing. It would be neat to know if the physics actually play into effect here for the riders. As we've talked about on previous editions of the show, that these new sort of video game versions of real life cycling have tried to really sort of up their game by offering different physics and different real feels to the events to allow riders to try to experience what it's like and have it be closer to reality. And I know there's things like drafting involved and the gravity when it comes into play with hill climbs and a few other things. And I know RGT has really tried to make the physics of the way the avatars move around the course really accurate, from cornering to how they sort of intermingle with each other. But I can't wait for the day that they start including things like rumbling and all that sort of stuff when you're on the cobbles. And I could be even wrong. They might even have this right now, but it certainly is the goal for these apps to try to make it as realistic as possible for the riders when they're in home in their basement pain caves and not out in the real world.
Yeah, Andrew, it's quite amazing to see how far these apps have come, even just the last year. I know we all started this pandemic and there's a lot of attention focused to these virtual cycling apps. And I'm sure many of the viewers tuning in have seen even the changes themselves from, maybe their kids or teammates riding on the apps. RGT, one of those that's come a long way. As Andrew mentions, one of their main focuses is to try to emulate real life racing as much as possible. And you can start to see that in the game physics. But it's fair to say, I think 5 years down the road from now, we'll look back on this and think it was archaic the way these things tend to evolve. So very exciting world to be a part of, and a really exciting new discipline for our sport.
For sure. You can see on the screen right now that they're less than a kilometer away from the start of the climb. You can even see it in the sort of distance there in the screen. Before we get to that climb, let's check in with our viewers at home, those who've joined us on the YouTube live stream channel. Please be sure to join us in the chat there on the side and let us know who you're cheering for and that you're here and having fun watching the channel. And if you get a chance and you like what you've seen so far in the last couple of weeks, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ARC events and donate to the live stream channel to show your support for live streaming all of these wonderful races that we've seen here at the Canadian Junior live stream series. Checking in with our chat room, we've got E. Simpson saying New Brunswick fans are anxiously awaiting the start. I guess that was before we started. And of course, Go Kirsten, who apparently had a little bit of a technical there, kicked her out, but she's right back in. Go Christy, you can do it. Art Adams is looking for the leaderboard. Art, we're going to put that up when we get to the climb, so don't worry about that for sure. Good luck, Team NCCH from Trail Boss. And Rob Stagg says, all the women put on a great race last week. Good luck to all of you. So here we go. Go ahead, Josh. Yep.
Yeah, look who's tuned back in as well. We got Let's Go Team Alberta from Tanya Dubikoff. Really, really great to see a former Olympian tuning into the footage and an amazing coach out there in Alberta. So one of her hometown riders, Annabelle Thomas, is leading and wearing that teal jersey for the U17 leaders jersey. So she must be very excited to be tuning in. Tanya, it's great to have you back again this week.
All right, they have hit the climb. The slope has now changed to 5%, and you can see the leaves being blown off the trees. So they are definitely about to enter a world of pain. The speed has now dropped to 20 kilometers an hour. And as requested, Art, we are going to put on the leaderboard so that we can all see who is going to come out on top for the race. If you look on your left here, you can see a nice big long leaderboard showing us quite a few more riders than we saw in previous editions where we only saw 8. I guess maybe because it's a climb, they're giving us a few more riders to look at. So that is great from a perspective of finding out who is in the races right now. We've got Giza Rogers. We're following her race at the moment. She's sort of sitting back a little bit. Right now, a nice group of about 7 riders leading up the hill as we hit the first switchback. The slope has now gone up to over 10%. For those of you who ride on real bikes and real hills, you know that 10% can be fairly punishing. And for riders like myself who aren't the lightest in the world, this would probably have me going much slower than 18 kilometers an hour. I'd probably get up the hill faster walking. So these women are doing a great job right now getting up the hill. You can start to see some separation right now happening. That group in the front has turned into a bit of an echelon or a pace line. Let's see if we can move up one notch here and there we go. Now we're with the group here at the front. If you look on the left, we can see the leaderboard there. And in first place, we've got Ella Myers and M. Lawson working together, swapping out first and second there. Nicole Bradbury, Dylan Baker, roughly third and fourth, and Amanda Kleinekink and E. Gunter and E. Mitchell 6th and 7th. In 8th right now, we've got Volstad, 9th, Lilik, and 10th, Rogers. Now, of course, this climb is going to go on for quite a while, so these numbers could change a little bit. And everything, as you can see, we're looking at the rear view image right now, and you can see down the hill, past the switchback, it's been completely shattered, and we haven't even gotten a third way up the hill. So this really is a climber's game. We'll see how the race sort of comes together after the climb's over. And see if there's a bit of a regrouping at the bottom. But I suspect that the same thing will happen on the second part or the second climb as well. Let's see if we can change the camera angle here and get something a little bit more overhead here. And the app is not. There we go. So the front of the race is still actually quite well together, which is encouraging to see. We got a race coming up ahead of us. Looks like it might be Dylan Baker is in 4th there. It's hard to make out who the first rider is, so let's move on up one more position and see if we can get that in. Okay, so it's Lawson in first place, and it looks like she has quite a bit of a gap there on Myers, roughly about 15 meters or so. And then there's a small group, Kleinekink, Baker, Gunter, and Bradbury, sort of roughly all working together. And we're looking at Volstad right now, who's riding somewhat with Mitchell. They're only about 4 meters apart. Volstad is making her way up to this small little peloton at the front there, and Mitchell not far behind. And then after that, we've got a bit of a gap now between this group and then 9th place at Lilik. 67 meters back. And then there's a small group that seems to be working well together a little bit further back. Why don't we take a look and see if we can see how that looks there. You've got this group here that's comprised of Brittany Cochon from Quebec, and then Giza Rogers, Serena Hill, and Nora Linton. They all in the same rough area here. Sorry, excuse me, it's Cochon, Rogers, and Hill. And then about 40 meters back, we've got Bradbury, Linton, and then Annika Brantz are sort of in the same sort of group here. So a lot of small groups are being formed. Look at the top right of the screen, or possibly at the bottom. You can see where the riders are. All the little small dots represent the riders, and that small little teardrop section is who we're looking at right now. So that's Annika Brantz, who's roughly in about 2/3, maybe in the sort of the top quarter there. So it really has spread out a lot, but it may come back together. There isn't a huge gap at this point, and the climb isn't that long. I mean, it's very tough and long, but it may again come back together in the descent, and how the riders use that chance to either rest or to try to make up time. And then of course will be the real choice, right, Josh? Where you have to decide, do I need this rest or do I need to make up time?
Yeah, a lot of strategy at play here today, Andrew. It's, I mean, this isn't our only hill, as you can see in that profile down on the bottom of your screen. Certainly it's the bigger one, but it's not over after that descent. Once that descent finishes, we're looking back up and getting some more elevation gain again. So a lot of strategy at play. As mentioned on previous broadcasts as well, with this being virtual cycling, with all the riders riding from home with the benefit of technology on their side, they are able to utilize voice apps like Discord, where probably what we're seeing is a lot of these riders going. You might see some random attacks out of nowhere, or like Andrew says, the idea to just chill out on the descents and save your energy, get ready for the next climb. These riders will have coaches in their ears talking to them about various strategies. Okay, you're sitting in a good spot, now get ready to attack on the descent, or maybe to do a little bit of a push to catch back up. A lot of that strategy currently at play. The benefit of having a virtual discipline like this is that riders can utilize those technologies to have the coaches in their ears. So as Andrew mentioned, certainly some strategy at play. We probably will see some strong riding down the hill, not just sit back and super tuck and relax. So it'll be very interesting to see how this one plays out. This first climb is always a good way to break up the group and really see whose strategy is sitting where. So we'll see if these riders can maintain that strength and stay up front, and which ones can sort of make that pull.
On screen right now, we've got our lead group. We're on the front view looking back right now, and still all riding together. While you were talking there, Josh, it looked like Nicole Bradbury had a little bit of a trouble. I don't know if that was a virtual issue or a physical technical problem, or techcanical as we had coined in previous races, but her avatar sort of veered off to the right, as one would when they're having trouble up a hill. She lost some distance between herself and the group. She managed to get back on right now, but I can imagine that took a lot of energy out of her. You look on the left hand of the screen, she's been putting out north of 4 watts per kilogram, trying to get back onto the group. That's been doing about 3.5 watts per kilogram, holding this pace at 15, 16 kilometers an hour. So that's certainly going to tire her out. But strong rider, as we saw in the last race. She was able to solo to victory at the Dirty Reaver gravel race there. So she's certainly one to watch. All the top contenders are certainly up here. Dylan Baker, winner of the first race, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, she was second place in the gravel race last week.
Yeah, Andrew, that was, we speak of these technicals she experienced. No, that was actually a real life mechanical. I believe she dropped a chain last week. So that was nothing to do with technology. And just like, we are riding normal bikes. So just like in real life, a chain can be dropped and you're swapping through gears, especially with some of these hills sort of throwing, 10% grades at you, and you got to make some quick decisions. So last week, our series leader, Dylan Baker, did finish second to Nicole Bradbury, who put up an amazing performance. Speaking of Nicole, looks like we got some good cheering squad here in the comment section. See, Bradbury says, "Go Team NCCH." And Steve Knighton says, "Let's go Brads." We'll assume that's the Bradbury sisters. Make One-Eye Scooter proud. So hopefully the girls are out there making One-Eyed Scooter proud. And speaking of techcanicals, it does sound like Kirsty Simpson of New Brunswick has had a techcanical, but she's back at it. So good luck to Kirsty as you sort of peel the group back. I've seen some strong performances from her in the last couple of races, so I'm sure if anyone can do it, it would be her. So yeah, the Bradbury comments keep coming in. Glenn Campbell, go Bradburys, go. So we definitely have some fans here today, Andrew.
Yeah, I think the Bradburys are definitely watching our commentating live. I think Nicole took issue with what I was saying and said, yeah, I got lots of energy left, and then just took off, and she's now in the front there with Amanda Kleinekink attacking as we're starting to crest the top of the hill, maybe looking to be the first one in the descent and put some distance on her. She was able to solo to victory in the last 8K of the Dirty Reaver gravel race, so it'll be interesting to see what her tactics are going to be in today's race. We've got a nice mix of riders here in the front. You can see our junior leader, points leader, Dylan Baker in 5th place right now, but it looks like our U17 rider is not with our lead group, so that'll be interesting to play out. One of the things that's hard to tell from the live stream is whether or not all the riders here in the front are junior women. I think they are, based on the names that I'm seeing right now. So that's good news for the U17 riders. They don't have to worry about being in the front group as their points leader, it looks like, is in maybe, I think, the 3rd chase group happening right now as our leaders are cresting the top of the first climb here.
Yeah, you're right, Andrew. We do have our, those top riders are all juniors, as you mentioned. We got Lawson, who's a junior rider out of Juventus, as well as Amanda Klinkink of Kitchener-Waterloo, and of course, Nicole Bradbury, who was our junior winner last week. So as mentioned in previous events, we do have a combined race here. So you'll hear us sort of jump back and forth using terminology like U17 or cadet. That does mean the same thing. That is riders age 15 and 16. And juniors, which is riders age 17 and 18. They race together. They are scored separately in the overall ranking, with some prizing going to both groups at the end of this. So really also very cool to see, we've got riders like Annabelle Thomas in the past race was right up there with the lead group as a U17 rider. So quite daunting in real life, but here these virtual races give us the opportunity to sort of mix groups and see what can happen. So really exciting to see riders from all different age groups tossing it up here at the front of the race.
So as our lead group is underway with the descent, our speeds are getting north of 60 kilometers an hour. And, as I said earlier, these games do try to create the physics to match real life so that it feels like you're in a race. The steering looks phenomenal. It does look like the riders are taking the corners the way they should. However, they're not really slowing down all that much. I can't imagine going into a hairpin switchback at 45 kilometers an hour would end well for anyone. But they're keeping that pace up. A little bit of a flattening out right now before they get into the descent again, so the speed has dropped a little bit. But I think they're all trying to keep their power up, and some are resting. If you look to the left of your screen, you'll see the watts per kilogram that the riders are putting out. Josh, for the folks at home who are just joining us for the first time and haven't heard our explanations on watts per kilogram, can you let us know what that's all about?
Yeah, so those numbers you're seeing in the top left of your screen, this is really how how the app sorts out where the riders are sitting amongst each other. So watts per kilogram obviously is a function of the power output versus their weight in kilograms. So before each race, the riders go into the app, they enter their weight at the time of the race or just before the race, and then that power that they're outputting on their trainer will associate directly to their weight. So if you're someone who's more in the Clydesdale category like myself, you have to output a good amount of power to hold up a decent watts per kilo average. So just like in real life, your size as a rider relates directly to how much power you have to output, especially when we're talking about climbs. Those riders, that do quite well in the climbs have a really great power to weight ratio. And we'll see a lot of that sort of tossing around. And then alternatively on those descents, someone like me does quite well in the descents because I've got a lot of weight to put down it. So you can sort of take it a little bit easier when you're coming down. So just to say that weight does play a factor here. It may mean if you're a little on the heavier side, you're putting in a little more power, but it could give you a bit of an advantage on the downhill. So it's all back to that sort of concept, Andrew, like you say, of, try to incorporate those real life physics as much as possible into these virtual apps.
It was really neat on screen here, Josh. We had 6 riders basically all in a row, not in a pace line, but in a row across, all nose into the wind at the same time. That isn't something that you would likely see in real life, but it was certainly interesting to watch as we're getting close to the bottom of the hill. And if you look on the screen, both on the top right, you'll see that we have a secondary group that's following our lead group here. They're all somewhat together, and there still are some riders who are climbing the hill. We'll have to check in with them in a little bit to see how they do as we get to the bottom here. But before the action starts to heat up on this secondary climb, Josh, why don't we talk about everybody who's been involved in making this series possible, starting with our provincial and national sponsors, the partners, excuse me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we couldn't run this series without the participants and without the provinces who support those participants along the way, and teams, I should say, as well. So starting off with my employer, Cycling Canada. Cycling Canada is the Canadian governing body for the sport of cycling, supporting both sport and community cycling initiatives. Cycling Canada aims to inspire Canadians to cycle. At over 137 years old, most people don't know that Cycling Canada is actually the oldest national sport organization in the country. Head on over to cyclingcanada.ca for more information. Up next, we have the Saskatchewan Cycling Association Performance Program, or SCA for short. The SCA Performance Cycling Program is a development program for young, high-performance cyclists. Performance Cycling Program members also make up the organizing committee of this series, so shout out to those groups. Check out saskcycling.ca for more details. Up next, we have the Ontario Cycling Association, very well represented here today. The OCA is the provincial sport organization of the province of Ontario. The OCA provides quality programs and events to recreational and competitive cyclists in Ontario. To find out more, check out ontariocycling.org. Velo New Brunswick, our lone rider here, Kirsty Simpson, represented today. Velo New Brunswick is the home of cycling in New Brunswick. Velo NB offers cycle coaching, touring, racing, and events for their members. To learn more about this Atlantic cycling destination, hit up velo.nb.ca. Alberta Bicycle Association, very well represented here today. The ABA is the affiliated PSO, or provincial sport organization, of Cycling Canada for the province of Alberta. The mission of the ABA is to advocate, develop, and facilitate bicycling for Albertans. Look up albertabicycle.ab.ca for more. Last but not least, from our provincial associations, we have the Manitoba Cycling Association. The MCA is the not-for-profit, volunteer-based provincial sport organization responsible for the promotion and development of cycling in Manitoba since 1980. To find out more, head to mbcycling.ca. And that rounds off our provincial and national provincial support office groups.
Thanks for that, Josh. And why don't we check back in with our action on the screen here. We have our lead group once again climbing the sort of intermediate climb that's happening before the secondary big climb of the race. One of the things that happened in the descent that we weren't able to cover was that it looks like Nicole Bradbury did maybe burn a few too many matches going up that climb, because she had lost some distance on the lead group in that descent. She was with them right at the top, but then she lost, I guess she got gapped at some point. Again, might be a technical or mechanical, but it also could be maybe from the sort of effort she had to do to get back on when she had that first little bobble on the climb. But in any case, she's now roughly about 200 meters back from our group. So that's going to be tough to make up, especially since it's now basically climbing until the near end. So we'll have to watch and see what happens. But right now our lead group is Lawson, Myers, Mitchell, Kleinekink, Baker, and Volstad. So this is who's competing right now to get up our intermediate climb section. So we'll see if they stay together on the big climb, or this is where maybe some of the attacks will take place. Let me scroll down in our riders list here and move on back to see where everyone else is doing. Here's Nicole Bradbury working really, really hard, putting out 3 watts per kilogram, hoping to maybe get back on to that group and see if she can pull off another victory here at the Cap de FORMENTOR. Now we've got, it looks like Gunter is coming right up on the back of Bradbury. That's Aaron Gunter from Team Manitoba, as you can see by the yellow and green jersey. Maybe Gunter and Bradbury can work together and close that gap on the front group, and then make it an even larger group going to the finish line there. Following, we've also got this is Kiara Lilik and Brittany Cochon. They're riding together. They're already into the intermediate climb here. rider from Team Quebec and Team Ontario. Maybe they can again work together and close that gap. Only about 400 meters or so between this group and the Gunter Bradbury group. Moving on back, we've got Giza Rogers working with Serena Hill, looking like they are working really well together, swapping out turns on the front, keeping a really good pace, about 4 degrees of slope right now, and they're holding about 20 kilometers an hour, so that's a really good effort from Hill and Rogers. On screen now, we've got our under 17 point series leader. That is Annabelle Thomas, and she's joined with Nicole's sister, Sophie Bradbury. These two riders are working together, so it's good to see that we've got small little groups of riders, and it's not just all complete solo riders who have been separated. And that's really tough mentally. This isn't just a physical game, Josh. It's also a mental game for sure. And then we've got Annika Brantz here with Nora Linton. They're a little bit apart, as you can see on the screen. They've got a gap there. Maybe Annika and Nora can work together if they can close that gap and then get up and higher. And then the other Nora Rittinger, unfortunately, she's having to ride alone. She's in the new climb section as well. So hopefully someone can join her, or she can move on up and have that there. So we've got Jay Smith, that's Julia Smith, riding also unfortunately alone, but not too far back from Nora, so maybe the two of them can get together and work. Kirsten Simpson, unfortunately she had a bit of a technical glitch, that tech canicle that we talked about. Josh, I don't know if you covered the entry draw for the Four Eyes stuff, but we can go over that again at some point, let you know that even if you tech canicled out of the race, you're still able to participate in that draw. Moving on the list, we've got Samantha Fangeet. She's unfortunately working alone, but not too far behind her. Oh no, that's one of us, unfortunately. So she'll have to work on her own on this one. But she is in the descent right now, putting up a good speed there. Here's our motos in there. And then not on our start list today, I guess didn't make it, but I think this is Sophie Richuk. She's working hard to get up that hill. So that is the list. Let's head on up to the front of the race here and see what's happening with our lead group. Looks like it's still the six riders together in the lead group with about a 400-meter gap on Gunter and Bradbury there. So it looks like it might be these 6 riders going up the second climb alone as the slope starts to get steeper and steeper on the right side of your screen. You'll see as they are going up there. So, Josh, why don't you tell us about that tech canicle, or did you already cover that and I missed it?
No, we've covered it a few times on our various broadcasts, but I'll be happy to refresh those tuning in. So the tech canicle we speak of, first of all, to try and define it, that is essentially when you have either fallen back or dropped out of the race completely due to a technical issue from the technology side of things. So maybe your internet cut out and you stopped momentarily during the race, or maybe the app crashed on you altogether, something we are all too familiar with from the men's race. So these things do happen. As you all know, every rider who's entered into the race actually is entered into a draw to win a power meter from our series sponsor, Four Eyes, based out of Cochrane, Alberta. So for anyone who has a tech canicle, although they've maybe mechanicaled out of the race or have fallen back, particularly for those who have tech canicled out of the race, they will be granted a consolation entry into the draw for that power meter. So it's not to worry. It's somewhat of a consolation for if you weren't able to finish your race. And speaking of that as well, I mean, Andrew, you spoke a little bit earlier about you weren't sure what might have happened to Nicole, maybe if she burned all her matches on the climb. It does seem like both her and sister Sophie did have tech canicles of their own. The program stopped working, we hear. So this is just another example of what can happen. It does appear Nicole is certainly back at it though, and in that lead group, and as is Sophie. So glad they were able to resume their races, and we don't have to see them granted that consolation entry. Much rather see them finish the race. So great to see that happen. Unfortunately, this is the reality of virtual cycling. Just like we have actual mechanicals in real life where you might drop a chain or have a flat tire, here we just have internet dropping out or program stops. So glad to see them back at it. And Andrew, I hope that helps describe things a little bit for our viewers.
For sure. Thanks for that, Josh. Yeah, it's really heartbreaking to see someone's race get marred by something that is out of their control. But it's at least we have, like you said, some sort of consolation there. I might be incorrect with this, but I know like if your screen app drops out, for example, but your phone or tablet app is still working, I think it's still transmitting data to RGT. So, you know, if you lose the screen app and you have your soigneur, maybe that's your friend, your brother, sister, parents, if they can get your screen app back up and running, you might still be in the race as well. So don't give up. You know, always keep going until it looks like there's nothing else left you can do, and you might still be able to come out with a decent result. But like we said, you do get more entries into those draws, and those draws come by way of all of our sponsors that have helped out with this race series. Josh, before the activity really starts to get intense on this climb, why don't we take a moment here to recognize some of the sponsors now that have given either time in kind or funds to this race to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. And a big shout out to all of our sponsors. We certainly couldn't produce this series without your support, similar to the provinces in Cycling Canada. So big thanks, big shout out to them. And before I get into the sponsors, I will thank the Saskatchewan Cycling Association Performance Program for doing all the legwork to make this series happen. A big thank you to that crew on behalf of us and the riders. It's a great initiative. So thanks to everyone who's come out to support that. First off, we'll note, as mentioned, 4eyes. That is our power meter sponsor for the event. As mentioned, they will be granting some prizes in the form of power meters for our participants. So a proud sponsor of Cycling Canada and the Canadian Junior Virtual Cycling Series, 4eye Innovations believes in empowering athletes by providing them with all the tools they need to get the most accurate results. From recreational riders and runners to sponsored pro teams, 4eyes creates tools that helps customers train for personal best or podium finishes. So as mentioned, 4eyes will be providing 2 power meter draw prizes at the end of the series, each participant gaining an entry into the draw. Thanks to 4eyes and all other supporters of the series. Up next, we have Cliff Bar & Co. So the official energy bar of Cycling Canada, Cliff Bar & Company is a proud sponsor of the Junior Virtual Cycling Series. Founded in 1992, Cliff Bar & Co. began its journeys from its humble beginnings on a bike ride and continues its involvement with the sport to this day. As a sponsor of the Junior Virtual Cycling Series, Cliff Bar & Co. will be providing prize packs for the overall series champions on our junior and U17 men's and women's race categories. So again, big shout out, big thank you to Cliff Bar & Co. and 4eyes. And Andrew, I believe we have a new sponsor of the series for today.
That's right, Josh. Joining us for the final race is Pathway to Pro. Pathway to Pro, or P2P, is a global collaborative group of like-minded youth development academies supported by professional team X-Speed United Continental, offering a guided pathway to the highest levels of our sport. Be sure to follow X-Speed United for more exciting news coming soon. So I'm really looking forward to that, Josh. It's always great to see people and groups and organizations getting together and trying to organize racing for our youth riders. So with that, let's head on back to our race here as we have our lead group in the mountains of the big climb, the secondary climb here. Beautiful scenery RGT has provided for this race right now. A little bit of a separation happening, but it looks like Mitchell and Lawson are making their way back to the group right now. Still our group of 6, Kleinekink, Baker, Volstad, Myers and Lawson in that front group, and it looks like they are holding steady. It looks like Gunter is about 300 meters back. It's going to be a little tough to make up that with only about 5 kilometers left in the race, with mostly climbing in the next 2, but I'm sure everyone is cheering for her to get back onto this group. And it looks like our group of Koshan and Lilik still working together. They've picked up Bradbury in the back there, and Giza Rogers not too far behind. So it looks like and then even Serena Hill and Annabelle Thomas, are close together. So we might see this sort of fold into 2 groups here, our lead group and then another group of 6 to 8 in the back. So we've got some exciting development happening in the race as our lead group is about halfway up the secondary climb, Josh.
Yeah, and you know what's really exciting to see here, Andrew, is a variance of colors up at the front of the race. Really, really great to see a rider like Alexandra Volstad. That's, again, a U17 rider, mixing it up with some of the country's top juniors. So really great to see that Alberta representation with the blue jerseys there, as well as obviously one of our strongest contenders always at the front of the race is the Ontario group. So great to see Amanda Klinkink there, as well as our series leader. That would be Dylan Baker, as well as it looks like we have E. Mitchell in there as well. That's Aaron Mitchell from KW Cycling Academy. So great representation from the Ontario crowd as well, but it appears to be Ontario and Alberta at the front of this race, commanding a pretty insane pace. So great to see that, Andrew.
And as I was saying, it looks like there's a very large secondary chase group forming at the base of the climb right now. So let's see if we can change our video view and take a look at what's happening in the sort of middle of this race here as we move on back. It is not letting me go, so let's do that. There we go. And here is our group forming in the back. Looks like they have split up a little bit right now, but they are still roughly all close together. We've got this small group here of, I've gone a little farther past. Here we go, Serena Hill. And then in the group here, we've got Nicole Bradbury and Kiara Lilick, Brittany Cochon, and Giza Rogers. Now, they're not all together, but they are very close, as you can see on the left side of the screen, in their relative distances. So we'll see if this changes a little bit as we go up the hill. But it is a nice sort of tight grouping right now that could result in a change of positions as we get into the final 2 kilometers of the race. As you can see on the bottom right side of the screen, it is mostly downhill and maybe a couple of bumps, but it will allow riders maybe to regroup and come together. So if you've got a good downhill game and you can spin those legs really fast, then I expect these riders who are close together to certainly be able to mix it up in the end.
Yeah, Andrew, it's as we mentioned, a lot of strategy at play. That first hill, given some really solid grades in there, would have taken a lot of the legs of some of these riders. So really important that they're able to work as a group, both at the front and in that chase squad. Take advantage of the in-game physics, get a little bit of a draft, save as much energy as you can as we get to the top of this hill. You know, zoning in on that last 3 or 4 kilometers left, it's going to be high energy, high power output, whether it's down or up. This is what we've seen in the last couple editions of the races, is we see some major power, a lot of those red numbers from riders as they work their way towards the finish line. So at this point, it's race smart, race hard, and get ready for a really strong finish as paces start to get really, really high here towards the end.
For sure. And heading back up to the front now, it looks like our group of 6 still together. A lot of strong riders up here and strong enough to be able to stay together. No one is looking at this moment to try to break away from the group, but that may change. Only 4 kilometers left to go. We're coming up on the 39-minute mark shortly, and they've covered just a little over 18 kilometers. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you've got all this kind of climbing involved, for sure the speeds are going to be a lot slower over the average of the course. So the men, I believe, completed the race and it was just under an hour. You know, for a 22-kilometer race, it doesn't sound like it's going very fast, but of course you've got that climb and the game physics, as you said, Josh, are coming into play.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. It's less about the distance and the speed and more about, you see those figures, the watts per kilo. It's riders, although they're pushing a little bit less ground, and it's certainly less flat than in races past. It's definitely a power game, a wattage game. You'll see that there are some strong averages from all these riders. Again, a lot of those red numbers, especially as we ease into the final kilometers here. You know, these riders' legs are feeling it. You can imagine riding outside. Well, the game physics are trying to mimic that exactly. And we see some climbs here north of 10%. And as Andrew mentioned earlier in the broadcast, you can imagine just walking up a hill like that, let alone riding a bike and doing it for a sustained amount of time. So big shout out to these riders being able to maintain that power and keep up the endurance throughout this pretty intensive climb course.
So it looks like we've entered the end game for our lead group of riders. They're now in the descent, negative 2.5 slope right now, and you can see these downward sloping switchbacks on screen right now. Still all together, but this is of course where moves are going to be made. This is a sprinter's game if they stay together, or it's a endurance rider high cadence game if you can get away from this group and solo to victory. I don't think obviously the game doesn't allow you to steer yet. I know a lot of these platforms are looking to incorporate that, and some of them have done so on a trial basis right now with specific machines and whatnot. But in a normal race, in a regular real world race, your ability to descend and corner properly can make all the difference in a race that doesn't have a hilltop finish, like we see a lot of in the Tour de France, the Tourmalets and the Alpe d'Huez type races. This one ends with a descent into the finish line, so it's certainly going to be sort of a bike handler's game in the real world. But here, this may just come down to can you get that cadence and power up to get yourself a gap between yourself and your closest competitors. Still got our 6 riders all together. Looking on the left hand of the screen, they're all within a few meters of each other. And then the closest competition in the 7th place, that's Gunter, Rogers, Cochon, and Bradbury, 7th to 10th. They're about 1 kilometer to 2 kilometers back. Riding, it looks like all solo. I think Rogers and Cochon are together, but the 4 sort of the positions 7 through 10 are roughly spread out. Bradbury and Lilik are working together, and they've got Annabelle Thomas, our U17 leader, shortly behind. So we'll watch the lead group as they've got 2 kilometers left to the finish. We'll watch them come in, and then we will flip our camera back and see how the other positions do in terms of the race. Now, like we said earlier, this is a series, and there are points available for everybody here. So it's not just coming in first, second, or third that matters. Your position overall in the race will matter because you'll get points towards the finish, and it might mean that one position might mean the difference between even a couple of spots in the overall series, depending on how the points are weighted. I haven't actually seen the point structure there, but basically keep going, don't stop, go right into the end. Go 10 meters past the end, until you've actually finished the race, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and we're getting some updates on the live stream here. So thanks everybody who's tuning in on YouTube and providing some comments. It appears that Nicole Bradbury just can't catch a break today. She's stuck on an 8% grade, even on the downhills. So where we're talking about, riders can take a nice break on those downhills, or maybe just, spin the legs and produce some cadence instead of having to worry about major power. Nicole's getting twice the work thrown her way. She not only gets to spin the legs, but she has to spin the legs and produce some power just to stay with the group in a situation like that. So another form of technical, one we haven't seen yet in the 3 races over the last 3 weeks. So unfortunate for Nicole, but we know if there's any strong rider that can maintain that level of gradient even on the downhills, it's her. So keep up the good work, Nicole, and excited to see how that finishes off for you.
Thanks for that, Josh. Looking on our screen right now, if you take a look at the bottom right-hand side of the elevation, we are watching our front group. That's the big upside-down teardrop there, hitting the final big descent. This is going to be the -10, so we're going down the mountain now. Riders are going to be hitting high speeds now. We're already upwards of 50 kilometers an hour. So it's likely that they're all going to stay together for this particular point. But if you look a little bit to the right, you'll see this nice little chunk of red in the final kilometer there, or final few hundred meters, excuse me, because we're only about 900 meters left in the race. That's going to make the difference in the race. So we watch in probably, I guess, about 500 meters to go. We're going to see that slope meter go from green -12 all the way up to red +10. And this is where you're going to see a lot of these riders put out huge wattage to try to make it over that crest, because if you look, it's flat for the final couple hundred meters. So whoever crests that little bit first is likely going to come across the line finish, unless they've somehow managed to burn all their matches and somebody behind them has a few. So it's getting really exciting here. The screen says 300 meters to go. Still 6 riders all together working really hard. Look at those numbers, 7, 8, 9 watts per kilogram. I'm lucky if I can get up to like 4. This is intense. These women are putting out incredible watts, and it looks like Dylan Baker is putting out a huge performance right now, putting a gap between herself and Kleinekink and Mitchell. It's about 10 meters right now. Will that be enough to go to the end? Volstad countering, coming around the edge here and turning the final turn here before we get to the straight section. Baker, Volstad, Mitchell. We're going to move up here. And it's still Baker, Volstad. Mitchell's coming back in fourth. So Baker, Volstad, Myers. We're going to look forward here, get a better camera image. About 80 meters or so. Baker still in front. And it looks like it was Baker, Volstad, Myers, and Mitchell. So that is your podium right now, first through fourth. Good move by Baker, right as we said, on that climb. She just put the pedal to the metal and dropped the wattage and just got it done. Coming up to that climb, emerged to the flat section by herself and came in for the win. So correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but that is probably good enough to hold on to the leader's jersey for the series.
That should be, Andrew, and what a strong finish. Like you say, the power output by those ladies is just incredible at the end there. Really big shout out to our rider from Alberta, Alexandra Volsa. That's a U17 rider, tossing it up again amongst some of the nation's fastest and strongest junior riders. So special shout out to Alexandra for holding on till the end. What a strong race for that U17 rider. I think we've got a bright future ahead for her. So Andrew, I'll let you tune in for the rest of the finishes here. And we still got some exciting attacks to come, I think.
That's for sure. So rounding out that group of six, it was Amanda Kleinekink in fifth position, and then Marion Lawson in sixth. So it was an Ontario-Alberta finish in our front group now. We're now looking at Erin Gunter from Team Manitoba. She's soloing into the finish, about 200 meters to go. Let's take a look at what it looks like from her perspective. We can get a first-person image here. This is what it looks like climbing the hill, even though the slope is calmed down a little bit. It's still about 5 or 6 degrees. Beautiful Mediterranean Ocean off to the right there, and you can see some of the RGT flags here on the left. Must be incredible to actually ride this place in real life. I'll have to make sure to do the Cap de Formentor ride if I ever find my way out to the Balearic Islands there and get a chance to ride in Mallorca. I hear it's quite beautiful to do so. About 60 meters or so, and Gunter has a good 700 meters on her closest competition, so looks like 7th place is going to be locked up for her. Let's move on back to our next rider, and it's Giza Rogers. Looked like she was going to maybe end up with a plus 10 finish, but she's managed to work her way up into 8th position, passing Brittany Cochon from Équipe de Québec with about 400 meters to go, and they're separated by about 40 meters. Rogers out of the saddle right now and putting down at 6 watts per kilogram. Looks like she is going to go home in 8th position. Hopefully that is a good result for her in the series. And Brittany Cochon about 35 meters back. Still 300 meters of climbing left. Maybe she'll be able to do it. Let's watch this one. This one's going to be close. We'll step back here and take a look from Brittany's position here as she's coming up. Still about 40 meters to Rogers, and it looks like she's still working really hard, about 4.5 watts per kilogram, and she is closing the gap right now. It's about 15 meters, and it looks like Rogers is slowing down. Oh, and it looks like it's going to be neck and neck in the final 200 meters. This is certainly an exciting finish. It's also rare to say that for sometimes the higher positions, but it certainly is exciting for our folks at home to watch this. Who's it going to be? Rogers, Cochon, neck and neck within meters of each other right now. Only about 100 meters to go. You know, it's not like a final sprint, and it looks like Cochon is just putting it down. She has now gone in front. Rogers responds, attacks. Oh, she saw her come around and says, no, I'm going to go home with this one for 8th position, and it looks like Rogers is going to go home with 8th position. That was a good effort from our young rider from Équipe de Québec, Brittany Cochon, who will finish in 9th place. Moving on back, we have our U17 leader, Annabelle Thomas, who's going to come in likely 10th position. Looks like she's put about 130 meters on Serena Hill from Ontario, and Annabelle has about 300 meters left to go. She's out of the saddle, putting down the wattage right now, 4 watts per kilogram, looking to go home in 10th position. Josh, can you tell me, are there any U17 riders in front of Annabelle there that I don't have on my list in front of me?
Yeah, I'm just trying to seek through here myself. It's tough. I'm actually on the delay myself. So I imagine we do have a number there. Again, our U17 rider super strong, but unable for me to see right now. But I imagine so, Andrew. That's my assumption at this point.
For sure. Great effort by Annabelle Thomas over the series. We'll have to see when the series points tallies are put together if she's going to hold on to that teal jersey and emerge the series winner for the under 17 women's category here. Looks like she's going to come across the finish line alone, still about 100 meters on Lilac and Hill. We've got the first person view of her climbing this hill again. I love the way that RGT allows us to get different perspectives of the racers here. And as she comes into the finish, we're going to take a look at the race view, and there she is coming across the finish line. Moving on back, we have Kiara Lilac in 11th position. She's coming around right now at the last 100 meters, but it is neck and neck between her and Serena. Let's see if this is going to be a repeat of 8th and 9th position when we had Koshan and Rogers there together. Only about 15 meters or so separate our two riders here. Taking a look at the front view with about 50 meters, looks like Hill's not going to be able to match Lilac's performance there, but still a powerful performance from the two ladies, 11th and 12th position. Moving on back, as we see climbing the hill, here's Nicole Bradbury. Unfortunately had a lot of technical issues today, but still, like a trooper, stayed in the race and is working really hard. She has some close competition from her sister, Sophie Bradbury, only about 30 meters off the back. So we'll see if Big Sis will let Little Sis join her, or if she's going to go home with the higher position. Bradbury and Annika Brantz working together, so this will be an interesting one to watch. Let's take a look at the view from the back to see, and it looks like Bradbury is putting on a bit of a show here. She has put a small gap between herself and Annika. It's about 5 meters or so. Annika responds. Look at those numbers on the left, folks. The wattage is incredible. High 4, 5 watts per kilogram. So this could be a interesting finish here. Nicole Bradbury, about 50 meters to go, is going to end up in 13th position. But will it be Bradbury or Brantz for the 14th slot here as they come around the final turn? Looks like it is about 15 meters, and I think Sophie is going to go home with this one. So it's a 13-14 for Nicole and Sophie Bradbury, and 15 for Annika Brantz. Moving on back, let's see if we can pick up Nora Linton, currently in 16th position with about 90 meters to go, and there is a fairly large gap between her and the rest of the field, so I don't think she has to worry about looking behind her for the final finish. Coming around the hairpin turn at the Cap de Formentor Lighthouse and coming across the line, Nora Linton. So at the this part of the race here, we've got Nora Rittinger and then also Jay Smith. That's Julia Smith from Team Sask, our local team. Kirsten Simpson, who had some issues at the beginning of the race, and unfortunately it led to not the day that she was looking for, but still, again, like you said in the beginning, you can't mix it up unless you actually put your bike into the race. So good on everybody for participating and finishing the race when they can. So we'll stay with these riders as we sort of finish up our broadcast here and sort of thank everyone for the amazing performances that they've been doing today. I just want to start off by saying thanks to all the participants who came out and raced. Like you say, you win none of the races that you don't enter. So good on you for being brave and coming out and racing. Congrats to everybody who got the effort that they were looking for, and to those who ended up winning the things that they wanted to win. Josh, do you have any final thoughts about this series as we're closing out the day with our riders here on the Cap de Formentor?
Yeah, Andrew, a big shout out to the Sask Cycling Association Performance Program, particularly Russ Down and Caleb Bender. They put in the hours, and this is all volunteer time to put this series together. They reached out to us to see how we can help out. They do all the work on the website and the technical documents, all the stuff that you see forward-facing on this series. That's been done. It's been a volunteer undertaking by the Sask Cycling Association Performance Program. So big shout out to those guys and girls who made this happen. Very exciting to see these opportunities for the youth to race against each other, both in the off season and during, unfortunate times like we're seeing with this pandemic. So big shout out. Thanks again to that crew. We hope to be back for future phases, but what an exciting phase one of 2021, Andrew. What a great season it's been so far.
Absolutely, Josh. So with that, I think we will be ending our broadcast day. Once again, apologies for what happened in the morning. For those of you who tuned in to the men's race, it was an unfortunate technical glitch that kicked us out of the race, which we were unable to recover from, so we weren't able to capture the exciting action there. But hopefully everybody who was able to watch enjoyed what they could see, and congrats to all the young men who participated this morning, and it was an exciting race. Wish we were there to watch it. And again, thanks everyone from my behalf, from the SAS Cycling. Like you said, Russ and Caleb did a lot of work getting this done, and everybody at the SAS High Performance group there. So, junior racing doesn't happen without the power of volunteers and or any racing really in this province. So just want to say thanks to everybody who puts their time and effort in to make this sort of thing happen. I had a lot of fun here. Thanks, Josh, for coming out and helping me do this. It's certainly difficult to do alone, especially if you're trying to control every technical aspect of it as well. So it was great to have you here as a host. Maybe sometime in the future we can do this again. Hopefully we'll get this going in the winter of 2021-22. As we said before on some of our previous broadcasts, that this is we're an indoor sport country in some respects. So having this new technology allows us to certainly broaden our reach to cyclists and connect everybody across the country together to race and have some fun in the winter when it's not just a boring slog on your indoor trainer. Thanks to all the other PSOs that came together and helped put this on, as well as our sponsors, 4i and Cliff, and of course today, the Pathway to Pro. Be sure to check them out and support them whenever you can. And if you get a chance to head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ARC events, you'll see on the end card there how to find that URL to donate to the live stream, to say thanks for putting this on and to keep supporting this kind of thing moving on forward. So with that, once again, thank you very much. My name is Andrew Paradowski, and with me was Josh Peacock from Cycling Canada, and from both of us and everybody at SAS Cycling and everybody who participated, thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you sometime in the future. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, everyone.